sponsors of this event. We had a couple of goals when it came to this event, but one of them was to make sure that the financial obligations that came out of it did not injure our ability to do the rest of what we wanted to do this year. I will tell you that this entire gala is entirely paid for by our generous sponsors. I want to thank Mike Ryden, Andrew Antar, Proverbs Media Group, Conservative Partnership Institute, the Heritage Foundation, American Principles Project, Boyd & Gray and Associates, Crescent Metter, Targeted Victory, the Foundation for American Innovation, the Claremont Institute, the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, and the State Freedom Caucus Network. Thank you to every single one of you for making this a reality. I want to thank David, JD, Mark Meadows, Theo Wold, Reverend Brito, and Blake, who's about to speak, for being a part of this program. Again, I found someone once said that the best organizations, the best initiatives, the best things done in this life are ultimately just an assemblage of the private obsessions of the people who put them together. I could not think of a better lineup of 6 people to have for the first event that American Moment hosted. What an incredible evening. Please give them a round of applause. Everything American Moment does, again, because I'm a moron, is because we have fantastic teachers who teach at our programs. This year, I think we will host over 300 educational seminars. If you have taught for American Moments programs, don't be shy. I need all of you to stand up, and I need everyone to give a giant round of applause for American Moments program educators. Come on, stand up. I see lots of people not standing up. Rachel, Sagar, Theo up here. Come on, come on, come on. Everyone stand up. There's a lot more. Everyone's being shy. There's like 50 people in here that have taught for American Moments programs. They are the reason this organization succeeds. And the other significant population in the room is the people who have gone through American Moments programs, which is basically everyone in this room in one way or another. We are extremely grateful that you guys, at least initially, choose to just take a leap and say, maybe this is a good hour to spend coming to lunch on Capitol Hill, or maybe I'll spend a summer coming and doing the Fellowship for American Statecraft. I know for a fact the statistics show that we have earned a lot more of your time after that first interaction than just that first one, and we are incredibly grateful for everyone who has chosen to take what is a risk, to choose to affiliate with us, to put these gears on your lapel pins, to go around Washington saying that, yeah, I know that Saurabh kid, he's a little crazy and weird. Thank you for making this a reality, for making this worth doing every single day. This is, in a way, our 3rd anniversary party. On February 24th, 2021, we launched this organization with about 100 people at the Conservative Partnership Institute offices. And it was during COVID, or just as COVID was ending. And I remember a couple people who were in this room coming up to me and saying, DC's back. This party tells us that DC's back, and it might be better than ever before because there was an energy in that room. There's a couple people here. Congressman Jim Banks was the only congressman that was there. Where's Congressman Jim Banks? He was planning on coming for like 15 minutes, and he ended up staying for like 3 hours because he realized there was something really cool going on there. And a lot of you were there that night, and we're extraordinarily grateful. I did not know what was going to happen. There were cheapo screen-printed lapel pins out there. There was a terrible backdrop that like instantly caved after one afternoon. We didn't know if we'd have the resources to keep this organization going. We didn't know if we'd have a reason to exist. Again, we could all be doing better things. Collecting a paycheck via doing this work in Washington is not the best way to collect a paycheck, I promise you that. But it's been 3 years, and we have not only existed for its own sake, but we have had the impact that we wanted to. I always say that American Moment has a what and a why. The what is personnel. Most of this room is those people. These are the people that will change the American right over the next decade, 2 decades, 10 decades, because they're part of the 15,000. A couple of you have heard this shtick before. There's a couple thousand people who work for think tanks and parapolitical organizations in Washington, D.C. There are 4,500 people who work for House Republicans right now. There's 2,500 people that work for Senate Republicans. That goes up if we take back the majority. And when President Donald J. Trump wins the White House in November, there will be 4,800 people that will be made political appointees to go work for him in the administration. This task ahead of us, governing the United States of America from an authentic America First conservative perspective, is a conspiracy of 15,000 people. That is a legible number. The people in this room are a meaningful percentage of those 15,000 people. American Moment will bring hundreds of people for every year that we exist to put a dent in that 15,000. And within a decade, you will look around and see a meaningful portion of those, maybe even over half, that can be credited to the work that we've done, building a personnel pipeline that brings serious, capable people to Washington, D.C. That's the what, but what's the why? I'm not interested in creating the next generation of, Republican staffer bros that get trashed at mission and believe nothing. At the end of the day, the task of building a personnel pipeline was how we saw we could impact the America First worldview we wanted to see implemented in American life. The America First worldview that has, as part of it, a foreign policy that prioritizes realism and restraint, the ideas that David talked about, that says that America is not some open-air bazaar to sell off to the highest bidder, mainly China, on trade, that says that immigration is a serious issue and it's time we shut down the border once and for all. A perspective that says that tech monopolies don't get to run this country and that our culture, the American culture, is worth preserving, and golly gee, we have a role here in Washington to help do that. That's the what and the why. And we have made real progress that I can go to bed at night and wake up in the morning early to come to work and continue to advance, because it's the greatest thing in the world. I chose to get an apartment right by our office on Capitol Hill. I walk, 12 and a half minutes to the office every morning when I'm not feeling lazy and take an Uber instead. And I walk past people that are on their way to Capitol Hill or to a think tank that we brought to DC that would tell me that they are only here because of us. I'm not really interested in taking credit. Many of you have been placed by American Moment. I'll run into you at a party and you'll say something like to a mutual friend, you'll say, "Oh yeah, Saurabh brought me here." I'm like, don't say that. Like, you just do great stuff. Like, we don't need the credit. Thankfully, our supporters give us the credit for it. But that is what vivifies me. I know it vivifies our team, is being able to look at the material texture of the crowds you see in DC and see, oh, that's one of ours, that's one of ours, that's one of ours, that's one of ours. I don't have kids. The rest of our team has some. So I see everyone American Moment has brought to Washington as our children, and it couldn't happen soon enough. Look, we had this luxury, which is we had the idea for this organization in 2020. And it's now very sexy to talk about personnel being policy, and there's a lot of work being done to transition in 2025. We're involved with basically every single one of those projects, and we're extraordinarily grateful. But we were very lucky that we had the time in like 2020, 2021, 2022, when fewer people were paying attention, to really do good work and build up the infrastructure that we needed to. But 2024 is here. Part of the reason we did this event is because I really can't focus on fundraising for the second half of this year. We're going to be heads down in the office, making sure that we are prepared, and we will be prepared. I promise you that if President Trump wins the election in November, that there will be a serious number of American Moment brought personnel in that administration helping implement his agenda. I said, if we were hit by a bus in that video that played earlier, I talk about bus-proofing American Moment all the time. Slightly less antisocial people than I tell me that's a bit macabre. I don't care. Because I constantly wonder, again, these buses on Pennsylvania Avenue, they just go by like this. It scares the crap out of you. And so I sometimes wonder what would happen if our entire team was lost in a terrible plane accident. It's not going to happen. Nick doesn't fly anywhere. We would still succeed. because the population of people that have been brought to Washington through our programs are going to be here for the long haul. They're going to hire like for like, and they're going to be some of the most impactful people in all of Washington. I know that for a fact. So in some ways, we've won, which is great. Our kids are already pretty senior staffers, all things considered. We've created, just out of our fellowship programs, comms directors, legislative directors, district directors, all but chiefs basically on the Hill. And I promise you, there will be chiefs within short order. But we're not going to get hit by a bus, and this American moment is not going to be shuttered in the next couple of months after the presidential election is done either. We're here to stay, because what we've discovered is that there is a role for this organization in the long term, one that is not tethered to any presidential cycle. It's not tethered to any congressional cycle. At the end of the day, no one's better at bringing talented, capable, America First conservatives to Washington than we are. And the task of what we might be good at is expanding. We're constantly adding new programs based on ideas that many of you have brought to us, ideas for advanced policy programming, or hey, maybe your staff should come together for a coalition meeting to influence this issue area, or whatever it might be. One of those partnership opportunities is what we're doing with National Conservatism Conference. One of the hats that I wear now, because I need more work, like I need a bullet in my head, is the executive director of National Conservatism Conference. We're hosting a conference in Brussels in just under 2 months, and we will host a National Conservatism Conference in Washington, D.C. this summer, and it's going to be the best one yet. So here's my promise to you guys. We're going to keep working hard. We're going to spend the money extremely diligently. We're not going to give ourselves a reasonable schedule. And we are going to continue to innovate on every single idea we bring to you guys. And you guys are going to tell us that we're doing something stupidly, and I'm going to agree, and we're going to amend it and edit it, and we're going to do it better. That's partially why we've invited the people that we invited into this room tonight, because you are the people that we look to for advice on what to do and how to do it. But I firmly believe that we will win. And we is not just American Moment, it's not our team, it's this group of people and what this group of people represents. When I'm feeling my most dramatic, I say the following thing, that the ground in this age is littered with crowns and swords, but purely a dearth of men and women willing to pick them up and use them. Well, we're fixing that dearth. Every single person in this room is someone that if I could hand a crown and a sword, I would, and say, let's charge into battle and let's do the things that need to be done to save this country. We will win, and it's going to be thanks to every single person in this room. Thank you for all of your help. I get to make one more introduction tonight to toast for the evening. Someone who I consider a real close personal friend, who has made Tucson, Arizona, one of the great destinations in my life that I like to visit. Blake Masters is a candidate for the Republican nomination to represent Arizona's 8th Congressional District. He was the Republican Party nominee in the 2022 United States Senate election in Arizona. He was previously the chief operating officer of the Teal Capital and president of the Teal Foundation. He is the co-author of 0 to 1 Notes on Startups and How to Build the Future with Peter Thiel. He is a dear friend of this organization and will close out the night. Please welcome Blake Masters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's awesome to be among so many friends of American Moment. I have to confess, I wasn't always so friendly to the organization. I remember being very skeptical. In fact, I'm not sure if I ever told you, Saurabh, just how skeptical I was. So a couple years ago, out of the blue, I get a call from my friend J.D. Vance. And, hey, how you doing? How you been? Okay. So I got this guy I need you to meet. His name's Saurabh, and he's really cool. I say, okay, great. What's he working on? And J.D. told me. And there was a long silence. And JD said, I know, man, it sounds crazy. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds crazy. They want to, read it back to me again, they want to take over the government by training up an army of young staffers to go and throw them into all these Capitol Hill positions. And JD said, precisely. But trust me on this one. So I was very skeptical. I'm running for Congress now, but my background is in venture capital and philanthropy. So I'm used to receiving lots of pitches, including lots of bad pitches. And I thought this might be one. But when JD Vance comes and says to you, hey, trust me on this, okay, you do it. So yeah, please introduce us. And I think JD connected us via text. And I confess I was not responsive via text. This is a little trick. Maybe it's to excuse my own laziness, but it's a little venture capital trick I learned too. Just, when you get a cold intro like this, or it's warm from JD, but Saurabh was not known to me, I decided to just see how he would play it. And I was unresponsive, and sometimes people just, they'll text you once, hey, you want to set up 5-minute coffee or whatever. You ignore that, and sometimes they just go away. And you're like, man, you must not be a good entrepreneur, or how are you going to be a good nonprofit fundraiser if you just squander the opportunity? So Saurabh didn't do that. If you know him, you know he's very persistent, and he was very persistent. I think I ignored 2 or 3 texts, but you can be persistent in a very annoying way, where you don't understand the etiquette of email or text, or you can be persistent in sort of a dogged entrepreneurial way. And I have to say you were very persistent. You wouldn't stop until you got an hour on the phone with me. But I also came away from it liking you. And that's really rare in the business. So I set up a 15-minute conversation with Saurabh, and it turned into an hour. And I think we had another one the following day. And then he came out to see me in Los Angeles at the time. And I was basically sold. I was sold on the vision, as crazy as it sounded. And so I was happy to arrange some seed capital. Right? I think we gave you enough to get off the ground and go for a year or 2. But then if you remember, I was very clear on this. This is a one-time thing, right? Sometimes in a for-profit context, when you invest in a company, you give them seed capital, you really want them to grow and hit their milestones, but then attract a different investor for the Series A, right? You don't want them to just be dependent. And this is especially a problem in the nonprofit context. So many people, you give them a nonprofit check, and then 2 years later, they're back and they're saying, hey, we need, this organization is going to close if you don't help us. And I warned you in advance, this is a one-time thing. And Saurabh, like everybody, said, oh yeah, I get it. But unlike everybody, he actually went out and executed and did what he said he was going to do. He built this fantastic donor base. Probably half the people in this room are donors to American Moment. You've seen in the organization what I saw in it, and you've done a phenomenal job. You really have. I know that's too financial a cut on it, and I only give that intro because that's how I met Saurabh and American Moment. Of course, getting revenue into any organization, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, it's the lifeblood of an organization, but the revenue only matters to the extent the organization is doing good work, right? And so you've been a successful fundraiser, but what's the money done? Well, it's done so much. It's done so much more than I would have thought possible 3 years ago, truly. And there's a quantitative cut on this, right? You could talk about how many fellows have gone through the program. You could talk about the hundreds of seminars you've had. I actually think if you want to be impressed by quantitative metrics, Saurabh's totally right, where you ain't seen nothing yet, right? When Trump wins in November, I fully expect American Moment is going to be there ready to staff hundreds, if not thousands, of administration positions. It's going to be really, really breathtaking. But I prefer, absolutely, thank you. I think even more impressive than the quantitative output, this number of staffers hired and all that, is sort of the qualitative dimension of what you're doing. And it's still early days, and you conceded that. But to have an organization that is as young and as hungry, right, as American Moment, where you're trying to really change the culture and build a community here in DC. And I hate to hear myself use the word community because it's so hackneyed, right? It's so overused. But I think maybe it's so overused precisely because we're suffering from this lack of community, right? And you're building this organization of young people who are mission aligned, and you're really trying to change the ethos of the town. And I think, I dare say you're going to succeed at it. So it's an honor to be a friend of the organization and play some small role. I'm really proud of you guys. And as we look to the future, I'd offer a toast to American Moment if you want to raise up your water glass or if you've got some wine or coffee. To this amazing organization and to everybody who's worked hard to make it happen, may your continued efforts just continue to revitalize and restore our great nation. So here's to American Moment. Thank you. I would also be remiss not to mention, we've rented out the whole downstairs, right? Was it the Dirty Habit Bar? And the tab is on Saurabh. So go and enjoy it responsibly. Thank you, guys.